yeah, I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and then we'll move on to asking students some questions too. So, to start you with, why did you choose to start helping organizations, and then how did you make your decision to do that?
Oh, good one. Since I met you, Joanne, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Yeah, well, we met. I think I solidified my feeling more like 15 to 18 years ago of thinking I'm going to have a lot of money, and you know, it might amount to $100 million. It certainly would be $50 million. It ended up near $1 billion, which I don't have. By the way, since I'm out of money, we'll be passing the hat around, so you can. But I looked around and I thought, what is it that made me be so lucky as to have this degree of success? Sure, the right time, the right place, and so on and so forth. And I figured the thing that really counted the most was education. And when you get down to it, education is the big thing in life in those early years. It starts with the parents working on you, but the schools take over. And I developed a great admiration for my grammar school. I put in a little over $1 million so far, which annoys me because every time I ask for something, they only need something for $50,000, and I want to put so much more in. I want to put money into Kehillah also. Right now, I have to. This is a good investment, and Alameda School invested in me, and it paid off, and now I invest back in it. And that began to spread. Of course, I was already giving to Stanford. I've always admired schools like Santa Clara, Mills, some of the high schools that Joanne introduced me to, like Woodside Priory and Bellarmine. And while several of those are of Catholic nature, that didn't bother me. What concerned me is that they have adequate financing because their students are top level. They at Bellarmine and Priory, every last one of them ends up in a college. And at Bellarmine, half of them are in very good colleges. And this means that you're investing in our future lives, for the good of the country and all of that. My next step was to move into schools in Israel, Technion, Weizmann Institute, Ben Gurion down in the desert. Leo Beck was the first one, by the way. That really began about 35, 40 years ago. An outstanding high school in Haifa. I've now completed about $670 million in pledges and payments. In the next 2 or 3 years, I want to earn somewhere between $60 and $80 million. Everyone, the pros of the business laugh when I say that, but it's very possible I'll do it. And every bit of that is going to go to Israel. I think it's extremely important to support not only the schools I named, but schools like Bar Ilan, I believe it is, and Tel Aviv University, especially Tel Aviv University. I think that as you sit here and really don't know where you're going to end up 10 years from now and how well, you should be thinking about what do you want to do in life to reinvest in people, to put back in the ground what you've taken out. And as a people, Jewish people are quite generous. We practically give money to our enemies or adversaries to make the world a better place. And I demonstrated this by giving to some Catholic schools. I'm through on that program, and some 60 or 70 million has gone to Jewish schools already, but another up to 80 million needs to go to Israel. And this is important. And as I said, I've got Kehillah down too. In fact, I got Kehillah down on my will for a percentage if there's anything left over. Where's the hat? We'll get that going.
Okay, so you were talking about giving, so let's just go right on to this next part. Can you talk a little bit about your $75 million gift to help build the Lorry Lokey stem cell research building at Stanford?
Yeah, that's a crown jewel. I've always been fascinated with stem cells. Joy and I saw our first live stem cells in Israel at Kehillah, and they're cute little buggers. And I've seen 5 different stem cells, and every one of them was different. The first ones Joanne and I saw looked like schmooze, if you know what those things were in the Little Abner comic strip days. Sort of a round blob with a happy face. The stem cell potential is huge, and in being the lead donor for the stem cell lab at Stanford, I look at it as a way of, within 10 years, having saved, say, 200 million lives. And they're only now beginning to apply stem cells to human subjects. Actually, it's been going on for several years at, I think it's Northwestern, or University of Chicago, I forget which. But Stanford is now going to apply stem cells to 10 people with spinal injuries or deformities that cripple them. And these are the guinea pigs for the future use of stem cells. Stem cells are like people. There are many different kinds. I don't know if they're Jewish ones, but in any event, I'm sure the Russians will say they're Russian ones. There will be stem cells that can only do repair work on spines, that can remove tumors from the brain, that can replace parts of one's heart. I've got a 10% heart loss, and I'd love to have stem cell working on my heart and get that other 10% back if I'm going to go to 117. There are stem cells that will affect the blood, and you begin to see why I regard this as one heck of a good investment. I look at all grants, and not as gifts, not as donations. These are investments. And in your charitable giving, naturally, you will think in terms of charity. But what you're really doing is making an investment, whether it's to help someone live a little longer or to get some food that they wouldn't otherwise get so they can live to the next day. Giving is an investment, and it's a thrill. I will not want to leave money behind when I'm gone, but then I'm not going anywhere. So, but I don't want to leave money behind because I want to see it all invested so that I can see the results. And on the stem cell lab, in about 5 years, I think I'm going to be very thrilled with that investment.
You know, I just kind of want to add on thing off the questions you hear, but how does that feel? Really? I mean, you're this one person, and you're contributing such this huge amount to even to humans. Even I mean, this stem cell.
Well,
so how does,
I get a bigger kick out of this, and Joanne knows I get a bigger kick out of this than owning a jet plane, or running a country club that used to ban Jews, or having a yacht. I don't really have an interest in that, and I don't give a hoot about society in the sense of social climbing. They don't like me, I don't care. It's not important. But what is important to me is taking money that is far in excess of what I need. I mean, what the place they do with $1 billion? I mean, it's crazy. Just give me $300,000 or $400,000 a year. Now that is being greedy, because my Social Security check covers most of my monthly expenses in terms of food and clothes and gas. But the thrill is, again, is seeing a kid graduate, because he happened to be receiving one of my stipends through the 4 years of college. And he or she might not have been able to complete schooling if I hadn't done that. It's a wonderful feeling. You'll all have this feeling. By the way, I sort of hate the word philanthropy. It's like it sets you out as something special, like being Jewish. You know, if you're giving 10% of your income each year, you're doing a wonderful job. 10% is a big chunk of money, and especially if the income is only $30,000 or $40,000 a year. I greatly admire people that follow that formula of 10 or nearly 10% per year and more. And you don't have to build a building. And if you want to designate money, say, I'll pick on education, you can designate $100 that you're giving that a quarter to, say, the library, and ask them to put a plate in the front of the book that you donated. Then go to the library and look at the book. You probably won't find it because it's being checked out and read by everyone, and which gives you more pleasure. But the people in giving fall into several classes. And one would be the small giver, on up to, say, $10,000 a year. 10,000, no small amount, but then you got the major givers that give on up into the 100,000 or 250,000 a year. And then you got the fat cows that give $1 million and more per year. You cannot, there are 3 classes, and you cannot do without any one of them. You need that small donor because there are tens of thousands of them, whereas on a very large donor, they're in the hundreds. And take away any of those 3 and a project will fail. And we've seen this happen at Mills College, the University of Oregon, and other schools, whereby the success was that all 3 of these financial groups participated well in the program.
That's great. Actually, since you've already touched on this mostly, but the question is, can you talk about your view on money and how you developed this belief?
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah.
Let's see, my view on money?
That's the question. Yeah, just kind of, I guess how you feel. Maybe you're someone with experience with it, of course.
Well, the classic phrase that Joanne says is that I'm not good to myself. I'll walk before I'll call a cab. I'll look at something for its value, and it might only be a few dollars, but if I don't think it's worth it, I don't do it. I'll look at a menu in a restaurant where a glass of wine might be $6, and I'll say, well, it's a lot of money because that means a $10 bottle of wine is going to bring the restaurant $25. So I'll order the $6, but when I see 8.5 as the starting price, I do without wine. And I've got all the money in the world to buy whatever I want. I think that if people looked at money as a medium to get what you really think is of a value, fine. By the way, I won't hire a lawyer. The value isn't there. Sometimes Joanne thinks I don't go to a doctor because of that. You isn't there. But you get my point. Money, I don't look at as a luxury. I look at it as applying to a value for something I need or very much want to have. And what's the second part of that?
Just how did you develop this belief? What's the second part?
Oh, that's a good one. Depression years, 1930s. I well remember 1933. We had what was called a bank holiday. The banks closed up, and any money you had in the banks was gone. And my parents lost $120, which was more than a month's pay for my dad. That was $100 a month was good pay in those days. And your big, strong middle class was $100. So they lost 120, and they were already scraping because my dad tried to start a business in 1932, and it went under. And he was able to get his job back again, and we were lucky. He went through life never unemployed for a day, and that has happened with me also. The Depression was tremendous. We all have experienced this recession, which is certainly the worst one since the Depression. And you know how uncomfortable some of your families have been because of this recession. The Depression was much worse. One thing you saw would be hobo camps where unemployed men would take over a field, pitch tents, and they lived there. And you had beggars all over the place. You had men, in those days women weren't working that much as they are today. But you had men would go house to house selling pencils and apples. I think you've heard a lot of those stories yourselves. They were pretty dreadful years. They didn't really end until World War II began. And it took a war to end the recession, which is a very sad testimony about war. And once the war was over, about 2 years afterwards, 1947, the economy began to hum, and we had full employment and have had it most of the time since then, with the exception of recessions in 1980, 1989, and this past recession. So, one of the lessons I learned in the recession was when my mother sent me out to get a loaf of bread. All of a sudden we had no bread in the house. And in those days you go to the store and you have charge accounts and you settle up each month. You don't see that anymore. But I went to the store and I got the bread. You have a choice between small loaf and large loaf. And I got the small loaf because it was only 9 cents. And I got home and my mother went wild. She said, "Dummy, don't you know that a large loaf is half again more for only 2 cents more? Dummy, stupid." That's dummy's a word that she learned from my aunt, because that was her byword for her children. But that registered on me, the percentage game. And you look at various commodities, especially in the foods area, maybe the clothing area, and something might be $1 more, and you say, "Oh, I can afford $1 more," but percentage-wise, it might represent a 10% difference or 20% difference. And applying the percentage game, you save a lot of money. In fact, you become known as being stingy, a skinflint, and so on.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we can. Do you want us to move on to student questions?
Yeah, let's ask a few student questions, and then we'll have to wrap up.
Okay, Ariel, do you want to ask yours?
Sure. Okay, so you've touched on this question.
Okay, speak real loud because I don't hear that well.
Okay. So my Jewish studies class this semester is on poverty and wealth. We are currently discussing Jewish thought and attitudes towards acquiring wealth.
Oh, I'm sorry. Come on up. Yeah, that's a good,
Okay.
pretty close.
So our so my Jewish studies class is on poverty and wealth, and we've been talking about what motivates the desire for wealth and what factors limit wealth acquisition. So would you say that your attitudes toward acquiring wealth have Jewish roots, and if so, how?
The wealth factor?
Yeah, if it has Jewish roots, your attitudes towards.
Oh dear. What about Catholic roots? And Protestant? The money was really an environmental thing, like I just described with the bread situation. And I never wanted to become rich. I mean, I had no desire to be rich, a word I dislike anyhow. I wanted to be comfortable so that any need that came up could be satisfied in a reasonable amount of time. And about 2 years after I started the business in 1961, I had reached that point. My income was in the pushing toward the 150, 200,000 mark, which today represents $400,000 or $500,000. And so I was quite well off by age 40. And I was very happy with it, and being able to save and get the kind of house we wanted, and so on. But I frankly don't really care much for rich people. They're a pain in the neck. When you get rich people aside, like Warren Buffett or John Sobrato or others, they're pretty decent people. But in a group, in an environment, they somehow have to put on airs and the holier than thou routine or richer than thou routine. I don't like it. To me, money is not a measurement of a person's integrity or person. Money is a medium. It's a vehicle, and just like your car. The car is a vehicle. And it's to get you from one place to another, so it's too with money. But you don't have to have a wheelbarrow of it to be happy. Now, who is happier, the person with $1 billion or the person with $5 billion? And this sort of explains why I have such a disdain for money and want to put it to good use. To me, if you aren't taking the surplus and putting it to good use, investing it to good use, such as the organizations that fight disease, the education field, and so on. But by the way, I have never and never will give a single penny to politics. They're the lowest on the social scale, lawyers are the next lowest, and the third from the bottom is where I was, public relations. We're bottom feeders. Next, another one.
We had a friend, Sophie, is she around here?
So you have to come up.
Oh.
And then Emma, you had a question?
Am I missing anything?
Then Emma, I don't know if you'll be able to see.
Oh, okay. Oh.
So we talked about a lot about like investing money in like stem cell research.
familiar with stem cells?
Not.
In asking that question, it sounds like it. There are stem cells that are nasty little buggers. And it particularly showed up in Russia when they applied stem cells to humans without proper research. And quite a few, especially infants, died. And I believe it's under control now, but outside of Russia, the same experience happened where humans were used as part of the research without enough adequate checking on the stem cell. Is that what you were asking?
I just asked about like new technology in general. Like, do you ever think that there are any negative effects?
Oh, sure, that's one of the negatives. But right now, the stem cell technology is something that is growing, it's expanding. And we not only haven't seen it put to full use yet, we haven't really discovered all the things that can be discovered. And stem cells, I would hope, will be effective, even on things like Alzheimer's and so on. That's one of the things that they're looking for. But stem cells will be as significant in medicine as the polio vaccine, which was developed by a nice Jewish boy in 1957. And the world shook when that news broke. And it was wonderful because within a year, polio was history. And I think we're going to see a lot of that happen with stem cells. Thank you.
And I think Emma also had a question. Emma?
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
What?
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, first of all, I hoped I would be successful in growing up. I seem to have accidents here and there. No, I really didn't know until I was the second day at Stanford. I was looking toward business administration because it sounded good, but I was very typical of most boys and girls. Well, girls were still trained to be housewives in the 40s. Thank God that era is over. Women may be rich, not men. Women are smart, they are good. Sorry, guys. and I'm very proud of their role in making the business so successful. Where did I wander off here?
I asked you like what you first wanted to be. Like,
Yeah, I think that I really didn't get a fix until the second day when I saw an ad for reporters for the Stanford Daily. And I applied, I got on, and I realized by the end of the week that I want to be a journalist. And that was the beginning. Many men and women find themselves after they're into college. And if you haven't found yourself, don't worry about it. Just keep looking and thinking. Do look toward technology, the science end. And science, by the way, is not just semiconductors. I'm talking about medicine, research work. Some of this won't make you $100 million, but you'll find huge satisfaction in it, and it will be good living. I diverted a little, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see, she's got the longest blonde hair in the room. You're close.
We have about 5 minutes left.
Oh, what,
Yeah, actually,
what it was? Yeah, if there's a question, I'll take that.
anything else? Eyal had a question?
No.
Yeah. So when you give money to schools, do you see it more of like donating or more of like investing? Is it like investment or donation?
Just,
So when you donate to schools, do you see it more as a donation or an investment?
oh, absolutely an investment. Yeah, no, I feel like striking the word of gift and donation from the dictionary. because when you invest, when you make a grant to a university or high school or a grammar school, even a day school, you're investing in tomorrow's people. So I was really intent when the school was being built of earmarking the money for here, but I got waylaid by Tad Tommy into the old folks' place next door. That's the last place I want to put money. That's not an investment. They're all there to die. In time, I'll make up for it, and you'll probably see $1 million coming here. But the market has to do some improving and all of that. It just takes time. You sit back and wait and you enjoy it, and then you enjoy the fruits of making the grant. And definitely, to your question, I've never given away a cent. I've invested a lot of money. I've invested a lot.
Right. Well, we wanted to thank you so much for coming this morning and sharing with us your views. And
Can't we go another 2 hours?
no, we got to send them back to class. But
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we just want early vacation coming and make you an honorary Kehillah Ram.
yeah, we're called the Rams. So yeah, honorary Kehillah. So let's all thank Mr.